know what you guys are thinking right now. Quinton released a Christmas video in December? That's never happened before. I mean, Quinton is crazy late with his videos. He can't even manage to release a knockoff November video in November. So how's he gonna go about making a Christmas video in December? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Joke's on you. It's not a Christmas video. It's a Thanksgiving video. So fuck you, I'm still late. I've come to understand that many of my viewers are not American, and thus do not understand some of our more bizarre traditions and customs. To these people, it is probably essential that I explain the holiday of Thanksgiving. Every year on the third Thursday of November, people around the country reunite with friends and family for a feast of sorts. And it speaks volumes that people now expect me to describe the food that is served instead of the experience of seeing those people again. Thanksgiving is statistically the time of the year where you are most likely to have an angry brawl with one of your loved ones. And it's also the day where you're most likely to eat way too much food almost entirely so that you can pass out right afterwards. And with a description like that, it's barely a shock that this old annual ritual has landed very few notable spots in the cultural pantheon of holiday films, especially when compared to the holidays directly to the left and right of it on the calendar. There is no limit to the amount of well-loved Christmas songs and movies, but really there's only one Thanksgiving song that's broken through into popular culture. And in terms of movies, well... The Star Wars Holiday Special! It's quite the large statement about the success of the American film industry that while many of you know very little about Thanksgiving, I should have to make no effort to explain what Star Wars is. It's the biggest sci-fi franchise to ever hit the big screen, and arguably the most successful film franchise of all time. And every single year since the Force was reawoken, it's been the trendiest thing to come out of the winter holidays. But a long time ago, in a shoddy TV studio very close to home, the first attempt was made to tie the Star Wars franchise into a popular holiday, by creating a special inspired by and set to air around Thanksgiving. People have often penned the 1978 special as one of the worst Christmas movies ever made, partially because the holiday nomenclature is most commonly connected to the time of the solstice. But moreover, I think people just realized that it would be depressing to think that the only commonly known Thanksgiving movie is also seen as one of the worst movies ever made. And hell, you'd think there'd be something fun about the concept of a Star Wars Thanksgiving special. All like, Han Solo and Princess Leia thought they had it good, but when the in-laws come to town, things might get messy. But 1978 was a time before Lucas had officially began his policy on Star Wars being a story about the Skywalker family. Before a horrified and handless Luke found out that Darth Vader was his father, and before an equally horrified audience found out that Luke and Leia were siblings. One could also easily argue that, at the time, the presence of the first and only Star Wars film made it not a franchise, but a phenomenon. And one not necessarily known for story arcs or philosophical meaning, but instead just for selling an obscenely high amount of toys. To prepare myself for episode 8, I've been watching all of the Star Wars films in chronological order, starting with the prequels, working my way through Rogue One, episode 4, and then the very special that we are talking about today. I think that viewing it this way has been very important to understanding the context for why the Star Wars Holiday Special is almost universally agreed upon to not only be one of the worst Star Wars movies ever made, but also the least canon Star Wars movie ever made. Which almost feels insulting to episode 2, which works so hard to be both of those things.
Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
The difference between the Star Wars Holiday Special and the prequels in terms of how bad they get is that in the prequels, while the individual characters are constantly making fools of themselves and in the process losing the respect of the audience, the universe itself manages to keep its dignity almost entirely intact. Meanwhile, in the Holiday Special, the characters that we know from episode 4 frankly act pretty normally. And instead what is warped is the legitimacy of the universe being played out.
We celebrate a day of peace, a day of harmony.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. The special revolves around a plot where Han Solo and Chewbacca are trying their best to return to Chewbacca's home planet of Kashyyyk for the Star Wars parody of Thanksgiving. However, they face trouble when they are intercepted by Empire forces. You can tell you're in for quite a treat when the opening scene of the special is this patched together. Half of the footage here is taken from the first Star Wars movie, and half of it is filmed on a cheap studio camera with the actors wobbling back and forth. I keep thinking about the scene in Plan 9 from Outer Space where the two actors are just sitting in front of a shower curtain and awkwardly shuffling to imitate the motions of a plane, while also knocking over half of their set. And frankly, Star Wars of all franchises should know how to film a cockpit scene.
Alright, we'll give it a try. I'll set your coordinates. You won't jump far. I'll get you back there in time, pal. Trust me.
Look at poor Harrison Ford. He really doesn't want to be here. I mean, I haven't seen him look this uncomfortable since Indiana Jones 4.
I liked Indiana Jones 4.
You're still here? I told you to leave!
I thought you meant that room.
Have you been living here this whole time without telling me?
If I say no, can I stay?
No!
That movie made Shia's career, dude.
Get the fuck out of my house! When I said earlier that the special revolves around the plot of Han and Chewbacca attempting to reach Kashyyyk, what I meant was that while it is the central plot in a way, we're not really shown much of that journey. Instead, what's actually illustrated is the monotonous lives of Chewbacca's family as they patiently wait for him to show up.
Why do Wookiees carve X-Wings?
Why is there a whole movie starring Wookiees? It should be qualified for the few of you who are not even remotely acquainted with Star Wars that Chewbacca's race of people do not talk. One person involved in this special noted that if it was to go ahead as planned, that it would quickly become an hour-long Lassie episode. And I think that's really the best way to describe it. It's a long-winded game of charades where the audience is constantly trying to figure out what is going on and what is even being said, just to realize that it's all actually really super boring. Hey, come dry dishes. No, I don't want... Get your ass over here, come dry these dishes. Oh, but I'm watching TV. Oh man, you know, I was watching TV, Mom. Why you gotta do this to me, Mom? I was watching TV. You know, I don't want to dry dishes. I'm watching TV. Are we sure this is a Star Wars movie? The only reason that anyone could have possibly decided that scenes like this were in any way reasonable to put to script is because of the gimmick that the characters aren't human and don't speak English, so it's kinda weird.
Don't put this cookie back, it's covered in Wookiee hair now.
But besides from the fact that it's kinda weird, it really boils down to just being nothing more than both annoying and boring. Which is an obnoxious contradiction, I tell you that. I'll level with you. This isn't the first time I've tried to review the Star Wars Holiday Special. In fact, last year I went as far as to organize a viewing party just for it. I forced several of my friends to sit down and watch this horrible special with me, just so I could then write a review, but when I sat down to write the script, nothing would come out.
I mean, what are you exactly supposed to comment about this, except saying it's weird every time?
Usually as a commentator, when something is annoying, there's a way to seamlessly convert that into satire. But when something is annoying and mundane, then you just kinda want to turn it off. And I can assure you that everyone at the party certainly wanted me to do that.
Oh, so this is gonna be your first Star Wars movie.
Oh no!
This special runs just under 2 hours when you include the ads that played the first and only time that it aired. And while that's pretty common for this franchise, most Star Wars films are filled with exciting fight scenes, expensive special effects, and character drama. Here, meanwhile, the main characters don't leave this stupid tree hut until 9 minutes to the end of the special. So what do our main characters manage to do with the time? They watch TV, of course. So you're sitting here, bored out of your mind, watching characters who are also obviously bored, to the point that they decide to watch TV to pass the time, and the TV they end up watching is somehow more boring than what you were watching to begin with.
You just say, are you waiting to see if this will hold up? Yeah. Like it was on TV and people were like, hey, this is pretty good.
The plot will basically revolve around the following points. Someone in Chewbacca's family will be seen being bored, so they'll decide to watch TV. Sometimes it'll be the kid watching a hologram, sometimes it'll be the mom watching a cooking show.
Rand Paul is in this movie? No, it looks like Ted Cruz, kinda. And I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Afterwards, the mom and the grandpa will get worried that Chewbacca is late coming home, which will lead to them studying an old yearbook photo of him, while the kid Wookiee does God knows what.
Well, my life's over, I better try and kill myself.
To find answers to their lingering questions, they will then essentially Skype call characters from Episode 4 to ask them where he and Han might be.
Oh, R2, look. It's Chewbacca's family.
Turn it off quickly.
So the way that they must have done this effect of the characters being shown on the TVs is that they did an edit of the scene without the TV effect, and then they played the whole scene back on a real TV, which was then filmed. You can tell because every once in a while, for just a frame or two, the wrong shot will be shown on the wrong monitor. This is probably also a side effect of the special obviously having a much higher frame rate than most Star Wars products, making these issues much harder to find and eliminate. Boy, I bet George Lucas would just love to fix all the editing mistakes in this special. Mark Hamill's performance in this scene is quite infamous. It could be described as like a Ken doll on Oxycontin. There's a popular urban legend that his surreal appearance in this special can be explained by a car accident that took place in 1966 and left him replaced by a lookalike. There's a popular urban legend that his surreal appearance in this special can be explained by a car accident that took place in 1977 and led to him needing much surgery. There is indication that such car crash did take place and led to his cheekbones being broken, but personally the only explanation I need is that Hamill felt very uncomfortable with filming this special, which he immediately seemed to recognize was not very much Star Wars, and this seems to have taken a huge toll on his performance. He delivers all of his lines less like he would in any other canon Star Wars product, and more like he's shooting a sequel to that parody he did for The Muppet Show.
Seems we've landed on some sort of comedy variety show planet.
And because of this, he just comes across as a little bit too bright. And that makes him seem oddly sinister. If it wasn't for the fact that we know who Luke is and we know that he's supposed to be the good guy, one might almost suspect that the intention was for us to believe that Luke was secretly the bad guy the entire time. Like, are we sure this wasn't his secret audition to play the Joker?
Oh, he's not there yet, is that it? All I can tell you is that he and Han left here on schedule. If he's not there now, they're way overdue.
What? They're not there yet? Well, that's crazy. They should be there. I hope they're not dead. That'd be, I gotta go. Because Luke was so unhelpful, the Wookiee family moves on to call the next notable character from Episode 4, Saun Dann. What? You don't know who Saun Dann is? Oh, he's a classic character from deep in the Star Wars lore. Didn't you see that episode of Rebels where he showed up at the end and saved everybody? What, did you miss his cameo in Episode 3 where he was played by a slightly younger lookalike?
Ah, Mr. Yoda, sir, this is the finest escape pod in the galaxy. Got off a train in Alderaan. It's a little rusty on takeoff. You gotta land, you gotta worry about it. Have you ever heard the story about Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Besides shaving and hair trimming, it's guaranteed to lift stains off clothing, faces, and hands. Cleans teeth, fingers, and toenails, washes eyes, pierces ears, calculates, modulates, and syncopates life rhythms, and can repeat the entire Imperial Penal Code, all 17 volumes, in half the time of the old XP21.
The Wookiee family tried to get in contact with him about their missing guests, but he is busy trying to sell items in his shop to a high-ranking member of the Empire.
It only has fish in it when you get a close-up.
Am I the only one slightly distracted by his open shirt?
Show off the goods.
Well, you could get something in the shop, or you could look in to see what I have in the bag.
Meanwhile, in an apparent attempt to hunt down members of the Rebel Alliance, the Empire decides to execute a blockade and a curfew. To clarify, that is a curfew on the entire galaxy! Surely that's not entirely plausible. Good plan, Annie, you're a fucking brilliant tactician. But it's then that our old friend Saun Dann stops by from the shop to give some gifts to his furry little friends. Each gift happens to also have a video segment that ties into it. The kid gets this radio transmitter thing, which he puts together using a video tutorial. Fuck you, movie.
Jared, they're building the lore, right?
They're building the lore, yeah.
What if they just go and watch the prequels for the rest of the film?
Meanwhile, Dan gives the grandpa Wookiee porn.
I thought you might like this. One of those, it's a real, it's kind of hard to explain. It's a, wow. You know what I mean?
Like I said, porn.
Oh, yes. I can feel my creation. Oh. We are excited, aren't we?
Yeah, where's like the little cam at the bottom showing us the Wookiee reaction?
Yeah, I like this part. Yeah, like, I watch a whole Wookiee reaction channel.
Hair that's like this Christmas icicles you put on the wall.
I find you adorable.
Did you ever wish you were blind?
It looks like YouTube is lacking. Who's that woman over there? Kinda looks like me.
Princess Leia and C-3PO, in the middle of shooting a commercial for Home Depot, call the hut in hopes of speaking to Han, only to learn that he and Chewie haven't arrived yet.
Mala, are you alone?
No, she says she is not alone. She's with a friend. She's expressing her warmth towards the trader.
Is there supposed to be like an inappropriate context here, or do the writers just not understand how to represent the concept of friendship?
I feel the same way about you too, pal.
Okay, that answered my question. The writers just don't understand how to write friends. But just as Han and Chewie manage to land on the planet, the hut is visited by Empire forces, who are searching every home in the galaxy for members of the rebellion.
Hello, sir. Is anyone in this household part of the Rebel Alliance?
No.
Shit, man, that's good enough for me. I got like 3 plants worth of houses to check today.
This unit is occupied by 4 Wookiees, 2 adult males, 1 adult female, and 1 male child.
Where is the other Wookiee male?
It's me, sir. This is what we look like when we shave our faces.
Dann tries to help the Wookiee family out by assisting in distracting the Imperial officers with food and entertainment.
Will you get on with it?
Yes, get on with it!
In particular, Dann shows one of the members of the Empire a music video by Jefferson Starship, which is their name in the real world and not the Star Wars world because the 70s were weird.
Why is he singing with a purple lightsaber?
I know I'm glancing over most of these segments, but it's only because there's so few words to say about them. Like this? This is a music video. Great, we're watching a music video. Shouldn't be in a Star Wars movie. Hard to sit through, but I think it's obvious at this point that all of this is hard to sit through, and none of it belongs in a Star Wars movie, so I can't really say anything new. But make no mistake, the overabundance of these stupid segments is what actually makes this special so unbearable. And about this far in is when they start to get weird.
Oh! That's legit Harrison Ford!
So the kid Wookiee decides to sit down at this point at this yellow panel and decides to watch a cartoon. A Star Wars cartoon. What? So this little short is regarded as one of the only enjoyable parts of this special? Most people who give their opinions about this will quickly switch to talking about the cartoon so that they don't have to think about the grandpa masturbating too long. It certainly is the most exciting part of the special. It comes from the days of animation where things were much more traditional, allowing for noticeably more fluid animation as well as charming errors that no one had time or care to fix. It also has some very fun and eccentric character designs, leading to the only Star Wars media I've ever seen where C-3PO blinks and R2-D2 just kinda falls apart whenever he gets excited. However, the reason that anyone cares about this cartoon in the first place is that it's the first appearance of Boba Fett, beloved by die-hard fans and laughed at by everyone else. Here's my only question though. Can anyone explain what this is? Like, did this really happen? It's being watched by a child within the Star Wars universe. The title is written in a fictional Star Wars universe language. It's clearly intended to be a cartoon within the Star Wars universe. So is this like rebellion propaganda? Or did this really happen and then they just animated it moment by moment? There's this one moment where the Emperor guy almost catches the young Wookiee watching it, and I kinda wish she had caught him because I wanna know what he would have thought this was.
We intercepted a message between Boba and Darth Vader, sir. Boba Fett is Darth Vader's right-hand man.
We'll meet again.
Yeah, people love that character just chicken shitted out of that confrontation.
Then there's this transmission that's sent out by the Empire that's required for any member of the Imperial forces. And apparently it's just a live stream of what's happening on Tatooine, which they stream out because it makes everyone else in the galaxy feel better.
In the hope that our own lives may be uplifted by the comparison and enriched with the gratitude of relief.
Which is pretty funny. But then we cut to what is supposed to be the Cantina from the 4th film, and suddenly it's like a scripted drama starring B. Arthur from the Golden Girls? Huh?
I wasn't looking for that when I came in here. Maybe that's why it happened, because I wasn't asking for love anymore. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't begging, whining, groveling, sniveling. I just came in here for a drink.
and I found a lot more.
You see, back in the 70s, this was called flirting. But today, we would call something like this assault. But then the cantina is shut down by the new curfew announcement, meaning that everyone has to go home.
We're closed!
I mean, I'm Satan. Are you gonna really kick me out right now?
B. Arthur allows one more run of drinks before they close for the night, which leads to...
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend.
And she's singing. Are we sure this is really happening? Is this Empire propaganda? If not, then why is most of the galaxy being forced to watch it? And now she's singing to a giant rat. Only on Tatooine. The kid Wookiee manages to use his radio thing to trick the Empire forces into going home by sending out a fake signal. One stormtrooper is asked to stay to interrogate Chewbacca upon return, but he discovers the ruse created by the child and prepares to shoot him. At that moment, however, Han and Chewbacca return home and fend him off. As God is my witness, I thought stormtroopers could fly. With the Empire defeated, Han sets out on his way and Chewbacca and his family can finally be one again.
They're doing a mating call.
Let's make another child.
Grandpa, you are intercepting the Lorax. I don't want to watch this right now.
The Wookiee family then collects together a series of orbs, which teleports them into space, because obviously, where they meet a bunch of other Wookiees, as well as the cast of the original Star Wars. Hold on a minute. If everyone in this scene teleported here, then why was it any problem that they had to get to Kashyyyk? Couldn't they just have teleported here and then teleported to Kashyyyk afterwards? I mean, if Han, Luke, and all the others can suddenly be here at a moment's notice, then couldn't this ballroom thing be like a strategic advantage for the rebellion? It could just be like a shortcut to like anywhere in the galaxy. I mean, you'd be trampling over a whole race's sacred beliefs, but I don't think the rebellion cares about that.
Do you think the reason they're in robes is so they didn't have to make any full bodies? They just had to make like heads?
Yep.
Is he wearing fucking sandals?
The point is that it's here that Leia gives a speech about the meaning of Life Day, and then begins to sing a celebratorious song.
We celebrate a day of peace, a day of harmony.
So this is set to the Star Wars theme, and I want you to listen close for that very aspect, because from now on, every time you hear the Star Wars theme, I want you to hear Carrie Fisher singing over it.
A day that takes us through the darkness, a day that leads us into light, a day that makes us want to celebrate the night.
One other thing, I just wanted to share with you some of the images from the day that they were shooting this scene. Look at how unhappy everyone looks. There's not a single one of these photos where everyone is faking looking happy, and every single one someone is like depressed. Everyone knew. No one was innocent. They all knew.
Chewbacca's like, what the fuck is happening?
Everyone's like,
His
it's okay.
grandpa's dying. Who put music in this movie? The kid is crying.
I'm crying.
This is the part of the movie that makes it like, oh, this is an unbearable experience.
And they're going to have a giant Wookiee orgy.
Don't you know that all Wookiees are cousins? Look how confused Chewbacca looks. He's just like, where the fuck am I right now? Remember the first movie?
Wow, the lightsabers are nearly as cool as I remember them looking.
What the fuck is it? It's the confused shot. It's like his whole life was flashing before his eyes, and he's like, I need to end this.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is a boring experience that I wouldn't wish on many of you, but at the same time I find its existence oddly fascinating. Here is a direct representation of what people must have thought Star Wars was about back when there was only Star Wars. I mean, The whole appeal of Star Wars as a franchise is that there are so many stories from beginning to end that are connected in fun little ways. And without that huge picture, without being able to document as many Star Wars stories as you can, it's really hard to figure out what the franchise is even about. And I honestly feel kind of bad for the Star Wars Holiday Special. Because if they had had a little more insight, if they just understood a little more, they could be a part of that legacy. This could be a worshipped special. There could be all kinds of odd tangent continuity references to this in modern Star Wars fiction because it would be accepted and worshipped as part of the canon. But instead, it's shunned and forgotten, which it deserves to be. Because it's terrible. The Star Wars Holiday Special is something that has to be seen to believed, but it's something that you really shouldn't see. Hell, save yourself some time and some mental strain and go out to the theaters. See the real Star Wars Holiday Special. And with that, I've been Quinton Reviews, and that's all you need.
Now that's what I call a special edition. Yeah.
Harrison Ford was sleeping with everyone on the set of Star Wars, and just one of them has admitted it.